You really thought humans would just let it slide? Colonel Jace Al growled, his voice reverberating through the command deck of the Warhound. The alien prisoner across from him, bound and shivering, clicked its mandibles nervously. You invaded our colonies, slaughtered our civilians, and called it natural selection. Now you're going to see just how unnatural humans can get. The Zorth were a proud and ancient species, their empire spanning hundreds of systems. To them, humanity had been a minor nuisance, a species barely crawling out of its gravity wells. The Zorth warlords hadn't expected much resistance when they launched their harvesting campaign, a thinly veiled excuse to strip human colonies for resources. Instead, they found themselves in a conflict that spiraled into a nightmare. At first, the Zorth fleets had the advantage. Their plasma lances shredded Earth's orbital defenses, and their shock troops overran outposts with precision. But humanity had a strange way of adapting, of retaliating with methods the Zorth could neither predict nor counter. Where other species might surrender, humanity dug in. Where others calculated losses, humans calculated revenge. Jace gestured to the display behind him, a live feed of the burning remains of a Zorth dreadnought spinning aimlessly in the void. That's your flagship, isn't it? Look at it. Took us 3 weeks to track it down. We disabled your engines, picked apart your escorts, and left you helpless. What do you think comes next? The Zorth prisoner hissed weakly, its gray exoskeleton glinting under the cold lights of the room. It was a minor strategist, hardly a decision-maker in the invasion. But Jace didn't care. Every Zorth would answer for what had happened on Europa and Titan. They say humans fight like cornered predators, the alien managed to rasp. But this is madness. You're only seeing the beginning, Jace said darkly, turning away. He motioned to his second-in-command, Captain Darren, a tall and lean officer whose scars told a lifetime's worth of battles. Get this thing out of my sight. Prep the fleet. We're moving to Phase 2. Phase 2. The term itself sent a ripple of excitement through the bridge crew. Everyone knew what it meant. The beginning of humanity's counteroffensive. No longer content with defending their borders, the fleets were now pushing deep into Zorth territory. If the aliens had underestimated humanity's resolve, they were about to learn what true fury looked like. As the Warhound jumped into slipspace, Jace sat in his chair, the tactical display in front of him filling with a holographic map of the target system. The Zorth stronghold of Karak 9 glowed red, a dense fortress world bristling with orbital defenses. It had been deemed impenetrable for centuries, but human engineers had a way of ignoring the word impossible. Status report, Jace barked. Fleet's on course, Darren replied. 3 hours until we reach Karak 9. All ships report full combat readiness. The special payloads are loaded and armed. Good, Jace said. And the sleeper teams? Already in position, Darren confirmed. They infiltrated the orbital platforms a week ago. As soon as we give the signal, they'll take down the primary defense grid. Jace nodded, his expression hard. No mercy. Not this time. The Zorth had made the mistake of assuming humanity's alliances with other species made them soft. In reality, those alliances had taught humans more about war than they could have learned alone. Infiltration tactics borrowed from the Sithari, decentralized command structures inspired by the THRI. Even the sleeper teams were an idea refined through years of studying other species' warfare. But where humans truly excelled was in innovation and their willingness to go further than anyone else. 2 hours later, the Warhound emerged from slipspace along with the rest of the fleet. Hundreds of human warships, ranging from nimble frigates to hulking carriers, spread out in formation. Karak 9 loomed ahead, its surface a patchwork of cities, industrial zones, and military complexes. The Zorth defenses sprang to life, dozens of orbital platforms powering up their weapon systems. Signal the sleeper teams, Jace ordered. It's time. Far below, embedded within the orbital defenses, human operatives received the signal. Disguised as maintenance drones, they had spent weeks planting charges, hacking systems, and preparing for this exact moment. In unison they struck. Explosions rippled through the orbital platforms, and key systems went dark. The once impenetrable defense grid faltered, leaving gaps large enough for the human fleet to exploit. "All ships engage," Jace shouted. The fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. Railguns, missile batteries, and experimental energy weapons tore into the Zorth defenses. The aliens fought back fiercely, their plasma lances slicing through human ships. But for every human vessel destroyed, another two took its place. The Warhound led the charge, its forward cannons unleashing a relentless barrage. Jace watched as the tactical display lit up with the icons of destroyed enemy ships. The Zorth were throwing everything they had into the fight, but it wasn't enough. They had underestimated humanity's sheer tenacity and their capacity for vengeance. As the battle raged, Jace received a report from the ground teams. Human troops had already landed on Karak 9, overwhelming the alien defenders with a combination of brute force and advanced tactics. The Zorth ground forces, used to fighting opponents who valued their own survival, were unprepared for humanity's willingness to sacrifice everything to win. Darren approached Jace, his expression grim but satisfied. "Ground teams report significant progress. The Zorth are falling back to their inner cities. Resistance is stiff, but our heavy mechs are tearing through their lines." Jace grinned coldly. "Good. Push them harder. I want them to know there's nowhere they can hide." Jace's words hung in the air like a declaration of inevitability. Across the bridge of the Warhound, the crew exchanged solemn glances. They had won a monumental victory, but the weight of what lay ahead was palpable. Humanity had shown the galaxy its strength, its resolve, and its fury, but they also knew their reputation would be forever changed. No longer would they be seen as a fledgling species climbing out of its gravity wells. They had proven themselves to be something far more formidable. As the Warhound and the rest of the fleet began their preparations for the next phase of the campaign, the crew worked with grim efficiency. Engineers repaired battle-damaged systems, medics tended to the wounded, and commanders coordinated the fleet's movements to secure their newly conquered territory. Victory here was just the start. The galaxy's great powers would not take this lightly. Jace remained on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the smoldering ruins of Torvak, the former heart of the Zorth Empire. His mind was already racing ahead, planning the next move. This war wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about ensuring that no species, no empire, would ever dare to treat humanity as prey again. "Captain Darren," Jace called out. Darren approached, his uniform still streaked with soot and battle scars. "Sir, prepare a transmission," Jace ordered. "Not just to our allies, but to every corner of the galaxy. I want them to see what happens when you underestimate humanity." Darren nodded. "Understood, sir." "And what's the message?" Jace turned, his expression as unyielding as iron. "Simple. We were pushed to the brink and we survived. Now we rise." As the message was prepared, Jace thought of the countless sacrifices that had been made to bring them to this point. Every colony that had fallen, every family torn apart, every soldier who had given their life. It all led to this moment. They had endured suffering that would have broken other species. But humans, Jace knew, had an unparalleled ability to adapt, to fight, and to endure. And now, the galaxy would bear witness to humanity's ascent.